Too much snow in New York. Michael, thank you for joining. Barry, thank you for joining. Okay, so let's get started because we have a big agenda tonight, and we have a bunch of people already here. So welcome to New York Augmented Reality. Great to see so many familiar faces here with us again. We have an amazing meetup for you tonight. We're super happy that you were able to join. Hey, Nikki, welcome. Welcome back. So thank you all for joining New York Augmented Reality. Um, Now, it's the holiday season, and there's no better time for an augmented gift. So here are three New York augmented reality recommended gifts for this year. The first is the Form Swim Goggle, perfect for the athlete in the family who enjoys swimming in the latest AR trends. So you can buy Form on Amazon for $199 and have them arrive before the holiday. So that's the Form Swim Goggle. These are in no particular order, but we think that would be an awesome augmented reality gift of the year. Next is Mario Kart Live Circuit. Race around your living room as a Mario Kart Speedster in augmented reality, and also enjoy the new split screen mode. And it's available on Amazon, and you could order it today. And then third, we are not biased, and we're not just saying it because she's here, but we think the Tilt 5 is the perfect holiday gift because it's reinventing game night by turning your favorite board games into tabletop hologram adventures with your friends. So reserve it today and get ready to enjoy nonstop action in the new year.
This was not a paid promotion.
This was not.
That's
We're
very
not.
kind, Sandy. Thank you.
Yes, of course. So those are the augmented gifts of the year. Barry and I worked really hard in putting the meetup together, and we're really excited that you're here, and we think that you're going to love it tonight. So we have an action-packed agenda. Here's what's going to happen tonight. So we'll start off with some announcements with the meetup and some of the things we're doing to encourage augmented reality in the community. Then I'll be going over some of the latest news from this past month, and then I'll be turning it over to the speakers, where we'll be hearing from Jay Wright, Magnus Runnison, Jerry Ellsworth, and Carl Guttag. So we have a really great event, and once again, we're really happy that you're here to join us. Now, I'd like to take a moment to thank the wonderful co-organizer of the meetup, Barry Seff. Barry, without you, this meetup would not be possible. So if you could share a few words of wisdom and share your presence with the group, it would be a real honor.
Yes, my words up. You see, I love how you put me on the spot every time. It's always great. Well, I think you did this in honor of Matrix or something to show me in way many multiple versions of myself, which would be a
Yep.
very scary world. But yes, thank you, and I hope everyone has a great next year and wonderful, healthy, and happy holiday season.
Amazing. Thank you, Barry. So this is a
Thank you.
special month for us because, as you know, Barry, we're excited to announce that we have reached 1,000 members in New York
Woo!
Augmented Reality.
Whoop,
Um,
whoop.
yeah, so we're super excited about that. And this past year, since the inception of the meetup, we hosted over 15 events and we've had over 60 incredible speakers. And we're excited to welcome some back tonight from across the entire industry. So it's been an amazing year and we're excited to share the milestone with you. So thank you for being part of the New York Augmented Reality community with us. And as the industry continues to progress and the headlines continue to ramp up, we still recognize that behind the rose-colored holographic glasses are groups of isolated developers and designers looking for ways to connect with the community. So because of that, we set up a Slack channel, which Barry will post in the chat if you'd like. On that, you could connect with members after the event, so you could reach out to some of the folks that you saw here post-event. We'll also occasionally put on some job listings and some of the latest news. So you could join us on Slack if you'd like to continue the conversation. And we hope to make that a great outlet for the community online. And we also send a weekly newsletter called the Augmented Report, where we highlight the latest news throughout the augmented reality industry. So if you don't receive the newsletter yet, reach out to Barry. And if you'd like, he put you on the mailing list. But I guess that's up to Barry's discretion. So definitely ask nicely to Barry, or he'll say no. And then lastly, we are in discussions of hosting in-person augmented reality events with venues and companies because we feel the best way, actually the best way to experience augmented reality is in person. So we're going to hopefully have live product demos, AR performances, in-person networking, and we can't wait to have the opportunity to spend time with you in person. So that's what we're doing right now to help with the augmented reality community. And sorry, I'm losing my voice. And just to go over some of the latest news briefly from this past month before we go right into the presentation. Since it's been a month, I want to take the opportunity to share some highlights. A lot's missing, but these are just a few that I pulled out to share with you tonight. So as you know, and this actually happened the same day as our last meetup, Niantic raised a really large round of funding, which is exciting, not because they're valued at $9 billion, but to see that the augmented reality industry is being properly recognized by large venture capital firms is very exciting. And they also released the ARDK development kit, enabling anyone to develop for augmented reality applications in Unity, and they offer incredible tools, the same that have been used to create Pokemon Go, Ingress, and Wizards Unite. So that was very exciting news, and I'm excited to share it here tonight. Dent Reality, I thought this was just a really nice demo, and I'm not surprised they were able to raise funding from it. So they raised $3.4 million to improve the shopping experience inside of grocery stores. And then this demo specifically within grocery stores and wayfinding to help you find specific products. But in the future, they're looking to partner with supermarkets. Looking to partner with shopping malls, museums, and other large spaces to use augmented reality to enhance the efficiency of browsing around these spaces. There's been more Apple headset rumors on the market, and at the end of last month, we heard that that the Apple headset, which will predictably be released in fourth quarter 2022, and will have processors similar to the Mac. So it will be a very powerful headset, and it should function standalone. So it won't require an iPhone or another device in order to give it power for high-end applications. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what Apple releases here and how they handle augmented reality, maybe through pass-through, which is all very exciting. Samsung released an AR app called Dream Ground. So it's a location-based augmented reality experience app. You could check the app. You could download it by scanning the QR code and checking it out. And you can get some mini experiences within your home. But if you want the full experience, you should go to the Meatpacking District, to Samsung store over there, and you can have an entire location-based experience all through the Dream Ground app. So that's super exciting. In addition, Samsung is rumored to be working with Microsoft on a project pertaining to the HoloLens. Exactly what they're working on is unknown, but it's likely that Samsung will be a key component supplier for the hardware on the HoloLens, which also could be related to their $500 million investment. Their investment that valued DigiLens at $500 million last month. Snapchat released the Snap Year Report. So I recommend scanning the QR code and checking out some of these lenses that Snap featured. One of these is by previous New York augmented reality speaker Lauren Kaysen, and there are just some really good examples of augmented reality through Snapchat that I recommend taking a look at. So yeah, if you need any links afterwards, just feel free to reach out and I will post them in the chat. Facebook released, or Meta released Spark AR Go, a mobile app for creating augmented reality effects for Instagram. So you can sign up for the beta now by scanning the QR code on the right side of the screen. And applications are not too selective. So if you sign up, you'll probably be able to get the app and give it a whirl within a few hours. So that's Spark AR Go. Nike announced the acquisition of Artifact. So they're a digital design studio and they create shoes, fashion, and apparel for augmented and virtual reality. This signals Nike's interest in getting involved in the industry, and it'll be really exciting to see what Nike releases within augmented reality soon. So that's the Nike Artifact acquisition. Google is working on an augmented reality headset, and it became clear this week after Google had some job postings about an innovative augmented reality device. And in addition, they hired Mark Lakowski, who is the general manager for operating systems at Oculus. And now he leads the operating system team for augmented reality at Google. So it'll be interesting to see what Google starts to release, hopefully within the next year or two. Oppo, a Chinese consumer electronic manufacturer, released the Oppo Air Glass on December 14th. So it's a clip-on device, a grayscale display that is capable of either 16 or 256 levels of grayscale, and it uses a waveguide display with a tiny projector with micro LED tech capable of up to 3 million nits peak brightness. It's unclear exactly how you control the device, but it seems like it could be controlled through Oppo's modified version of their operating system on Android called Color OS 11. And then lastly, thanks to Carl Guttag, who's here speaking with us tonight, we learned that previous New York augmented reality speakers, Imagine Optics is being sold to Meta. Imagine Optics creates liquid crystal polymer optics. So really exciting to see that they are being sold to Meta. And that brings us to the New York Augmented Reality Meetup tonight. And we're so lucky to have with us incredible speakers from across the industry to share what they're doing to make the impossible possible and making the augmented reality industry a reality for everyone. After the presentations, you'll have 5-minute Q&A with the speaker, and please feel free to use the chat throughout to add comments or ask any questions, and we'll collect them and we can ask the speakers after their presentations. And once again, we're really, really excited for you to join us. And first, it's an honor to have with us Jay Wright. Jay's an inventor and entrepreneur with a history of anticipating shifts in computing and building products to realize them. Since 2008, he's been focusing on augmented reality and is best known for co-founding and leading the incredible, I added that, Vuforia at Qualcomm and PTC. Jay built Vuforia into the leading AR development platform for handheld and head-worn devices and enabled an ecosystem of tens of thousands of applications for consumer and enterprise use. In 2019, Jay took on a new mission with Campfire to realize the promise of holographic collaboration for enterprise. Jay, it's such an honor to have you here with us. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Andy. Really appreciate the invite. And congratulations on 1,000 members. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I got to tell you, I've only heard good things about the New York AR meetup, so I'm really excited to be here and share a little bit about Campfire. Can you see my slides?
Looks good. Thank you.
Excellent. So maybe a little bit of background. Of course, I've been in this space for some time, working on Vuforia at Qualcomm and at PTC. And as you might imagine, I became very familiar with the technologies in AR, but equally, or maybe more importantly, very familiar with what the range of use cases were on both the consumer and enterprise side, and what the barriers to adoption were. And when we were thinking about AR sort of at that scale, the objective is try and figure out what are what are the use cases that really have the potential to be implemented and done with today's technology, and the ones that could be adopted very, very widely. And there's a couple that really stood out to me and have for a number of years. And one of them that we're very focused on delivering with Campfire. And we call this holographic collaboration. I think you guys are all familiar with the use case and what it looks like. We've seen some elements of this in science fiction. We've seen a lot of elements of this in marketing materials from various AR companies. And it turns out this use case, the ability to have multiple people all around the table sharing some kind of holographic experience, is incredibly compelling and incredibly valuable. For example, I think in Star Wars, if we look back, I'm not sure the Death Star would have been destroyed without it, without that planning capability. But today, the need for this in multiple different types of enterprise uses is very, very high. Not least of which is in design and engineering, where, as many of you know, when it comes to designing and building new physical things, it always starts at 3D and it always starts on screens. But we'd very much like to get that 3D off a screen and share it holographically. Now, the challenge has been, and we've tried to do this, this is actually very high on my list to deliver with Vuforia. The challenge has been is if you stitch together today's products and you try to realize this experience, it doesn't really look like this, and it doesn't really work like this. So what we did is we took a clean sheet of paper and said, we are going to start over and build all new devices and all new applications to realize this use case. And so that's what we built with Campfire. It is a completely new system, both hardware and applications that deliver on holographic collaboration. And by doing both hardware and software together, we've really been able to move the user experience needle and create a much better experience in three major areas. One of those is the visual experience, which I'll talk more about. The other is overall ease of use and removing a lot of the friction and setting these systems up and getting first users up to speed for the first time. And then finally, in workflow integration, making this something that works with the tools that people are already using today. So I'm going to show you a quick video, and then I'm going to walk through each of the components of the Campfire system and talk about some of the innovations that we have brought forward that address some of these challenges of the past in delivering this use case. And so bear with me with the video. I think you'll see we've got the usual challenges with bandwidth depending on where you are. Here we go.
Campfire is a purpose-built holographic visualization system for designing new physical products via remote collaboration.
What we found with Campfire is you can have conversations that you couldn't have before.
Campfire stripped away a lot of the complexity that exists in the AR/VR landscape today by really focusing in on the use case of remote collaboration and connecting distributed design and engineering teams.
We always want to make sure that technology answers a human need because we want it to be adopted. Human-centered design helps to ensure that the things that are being built are the things that we should build and that they're actually helpful for people.
Campfire's integrated hardware and software for working with holograms.
What excites me about using Campfire is to be able to interact very naturally with a product in that virtual space.
With Campfire, you can actually see the 3D object anchored and scaled within your space. You have a wide-angle view and truly high-def visualization of the 3D models to make it feel as if you're sitting around the table with your team, even if you're spread across the world.
We spent a lot of time thinking about how do people design, how do people collaborate, and how they want to do that in a 3D environment.
Our hardware and software are designed to work the way people do. They integrate seamlessly with your existing workflow. You open a Campfire link, put on your headset, and your models appear on your desk or table right alongside your PC.
Campfire allows you to not only scale your team, but expand upon those who are present throughout the design process.
It's hard to overstate the long-term impact of this capability. We're focused on using this technology to help people achieve more today. Thanks, Andy. And for those of you that don't know Frog, Frog is an iconic product design firm, been around for 50 years. And I think really their rise to fame was around a lot of the early work they did on Apple products. We brought them in early at Campfire, both as a partner and customer, because we wanted to have some of the best folks in design involved as we're building a product for the design process. Now, the first challenge that we took on compared to sort of devices and systems of the past has been visual experience. And as many of you probably know, if you've tried something like a HoloLens or Magic Leap, it leaves us wanting a little bit more when it comes to field of view and image quality. And so we've addressed that with the Campfire headset. And with the Campfire headset, we've brought a diagonal field of view of 92 degrees, which by area is nearly 4 times what you'll have on a HoloLens 2, nearly twice what you'd have on a Magic Leap 2. But more importantly, the image quality is extremely good. And Carl, maybe he can comment later. It's been a while since he's seen it, but yeah, I'm sure, Carl, feel free to share your comments. So in addition to being able to have a wide field of view, you also have the ability to see screens when you're wearing the Campfire headset, which is very important when you're in these collaborative scenarios and you still want to see people that are on Zoom on your desktop or your phone screen or the environment around you. Additionally, people can still see your face through that visor, which is important for the human interaction when you're having a conversation together in the same room or even on Zoom. Now, most of what we're doing with Campfire is collaboration that takes place in AR. This is about shared holographic experiences in real space. But there are times when you want to get inside of something, whether that be a room or a molecule or whatever. And we have the ability to do that with the Campfire headset. We actually have a magnetic cover that attaches to the front of the visor and attaches. And what this does is it gives you a VR view, but it's a VR view that does not touch your face. So you're not going to get uncomfortable from wearing this, but more importantly, because you still have your peripheral vision, if you're somebody that's going to get sick or it's easily get sick, it's probably not going to happen with the Campfire headset. You're also not going to have anxiety about bumping into things or other people. Now you'll notice it also attaches to a PC with a cable over Thunderbolt 3. And that's so we can take advantage of really high-end GPUs, discrete GPUs on PCs, and be able to render high fidelity content, which is required for this use case. So the next challenge that we took on beyond visual experience is with ease of use and getting people into this experience and learning how to use it as fast as they can learn how to use a Zoom. You know, when it comes to enterprise collaboration, that tool is only going to work if everybody that's part of that process can get in it. And so what we wanted to do is find an alternative to teaching people how to use VR controllers or gestures. And so what we did is we relied on the tool that most of us use multiple times a day, and that's our phone. And through the use of this device we call the Campfire Pack, this attaches to the back of the phone and launches an app which turns into the remote or controller. And that app gives you a whole series of tools, from a laser pointer to resizing to exploding and so on. And it also makes data entry extremely easy. But the biggest benefit is I can put this in somebody's hand and have them get familiar and be productive with it in a matter of minutes. Now, another challenge that we took on has to do with how do you make these multi-user experiences robust, especially when users are all in the same room. Now, many of you are probably familiar with this challenge, but we don't actually see a lot of multi-user AR or VR where people are in the same room. And that's because setting it up is really difficult, and making it work robustly is also very difficult. And that's what we've addressed with the Campfire console. This thing sits on your desk or in the middle of the table, and it acts and emulates actually a holographic projector. And it also includes our tracking system. So this instantly unifies multiple people all in the same coordinate space instantaneously. And the effect is shared holograms have the same robustness and reliability as the image on your desktop PC or TV on the wall. And that's really the goal. How can we make this experience in these shared holograms as reliable as we expect with a PC? So three new devices, and I mentioned we did devices and applications. So let me talk a little bit about what we have done on the software side. Now, the goal here is we want people who are working with 3D today, whether that be CAD or 3D scan or what have you, to be able to share it very easily with others as a shared hologram. And we do that through Campfire scenes. So you could think about this as like a combination of maybe a Google Docs and a PowerPoint for AR. It's like a Google Doc, and that these documents live in the cloud. It's shared with a link, and these links are inherently collaborative. So if I share a Campfire link, for example, with everybody on this call, we are going to jump into a Campfire experience together and just be around the table from each other, just by clicking on the link. Just as like in a Google Doc, if we all clicked on the same link and we'd see our insertion points in there together. Now, it's like a PowerPoint in that content is arranged sequentially. But instead of having a series of slides, you have a series of scenes. And so if I want to share content, I use this tool, I create a new scene, and then I can bring in more than 40 different file formats of CAD or 3D scan or what have you, and share it with a link. So we made it extremely easy, whether it's somebody who is a CAD user or new to 3D for the first time and might be just familiar with PowerPoint, to use this tool. So content that's shared with Campfire can be opened and used with the Campfire viewer. Now, of course, the Campfire viewer supports our headset, but it also supports devices when people don't have a headset available. And I think most compelling of those, because of its amazing AR capabilities, is the Campfire for iPad. So if you don't have that headset available and you use the AR view in Campfire, you actually can have the exact same Campfire experience with the content, and even all the tools that we have on the phone as a remote are integrated into the Campfire app. And then additionally, there's what we call an audience view in the viewer. So if you're not engaged in the experience or participating in it, you can watch and see what people are doing sort of from any angle, look at content, and you can even follow along with somebody else's headset to see what they're doing, for example, in a training type of application. So that's Campfire for iPad. And again, you know, Campfire is a very different category of product in this space. So unlike a HoloLens or Magic Leap, maybe where there's an SDK that goes with it, Campfire is different in that these are devices that people plug in and install themselves, and then applications that they download to work along with them. So it's not something where developers or third parties are building apps for today, which for customers makes this a very, very easy solution to get started with. So let me tell you a little bit about availability. After 2 years in stealth, we announced Campfire in spring of this year. And we've started an early access program, our Pioneer program, that we just expanded to iPad at AWE last month. So we're looking forward to our commercial release next year. For those of you that are interested in this and see a fit with what you're doing in your efforts, we'd love to hear from you. And we'd love to have you apply for early access through our Pioneer program on the website. So thanks so much. I hope that was a good sort of top level overview of what we're doing. And if there's any questions, I would be happy to take those.
Thank you, Jay. Excellent presentation, and great to have you. And I'm going to pass it over to Barry, who's going to handle the questions here.
Thanks so much, Jay. One question there. You said that it puts your coordinate space wherever you are located in the world. Let's say you have like 20 users, like you can't, how does it like kind of move you? So you all have to have a space within this boardroom or large table, so you all can like have a space there around this campfire.
So the experience is always going to appear and be centered on the console. So you can think of that almost like a projector or monitor. So if you've got the console in the middle of your conference room table, that's where it will appear. If you have it on your desk next to your monitor, that's where it will appear. If you're using the iPad doesn't require the physical console, but the
I'm
first
just
thing
talking
you
about
do.
I'm talking about the other people, the people relative to their space. Like if you're, how do they look when they're, they put their hand on the virtual object and your other person has their hand on the object in the same space. Like how does it deal with occlusion and those type of issues there if you're both like on that same space virtually? That's what I'm trying to understand.
I see. Yeah. So remote participants are going to show up with kind of a mannequin head with a name underneath it. So we're not trying to recreate avatars or go to photorealistic avatars. There's a representation of the user's head that lets you see where they're looking, like where their head's pointed. And you can also see where their phone and their controller is in space. And then depending on the tool that they're using on the phone, you will see that also. So you might see 2 or 3 different people operating their laser pointers simultaneously and another person that's cutting through the top of it with a cutting plane. You'll see all those tools live on the desk in front of you, and you will also see those people on a Zoom or Teams call alongside.
Fascinating. So the focus here is on the object and the product. Really focused, really laser focused for product design, CAD types of cooperative working together on prototyping and such.
Yeah, I think it's really important to note, this is not about recreating Zoom with avatars in a digital conference room. This is focused on sharing the 3D content as a shared hologram in high fidelity. So it's about design and engineering, where people are iterating on a design and need to communicate with folks locally or overseas. Sales and marketing, where I want to demonstrate or walk through or explain products with remote participants, or even training and education.
Fascinating. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I can see it's a really nice focus on the content, the product, not on the person per se.
That's
but
right.
on working together collaboratively on all of the IP and actual products. Okay, so you said the product's coming to market the fourth quarter. Is that when you said it's coming to market?
Next year. So you'll see software in spring, and you'll see our devices follow. But they are available now in early access. So
Okay,
if you're a company that's been working with this tech and has familiarity with it, we'd love to get you going in the program.
Great. So the remote interface or cell phone with your remote platform interface, is that I assume compatible with pretty much any devices throughout the world?
iPhone and Android. Yeah, so we'll do the app on both iPhone and Android. And if you're in the last few years with a major device, you're gonna be good to go.
Okay, great. All right, I think we are done with questions for this time because we have a lot of people on the gamut today. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And feel free to post your contact information. So when anyone wants to reach out for the Pioneer program or any other product questions, they could reach out to you. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining, Jay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Great to have you. Hey, Regin, did you have a question? Would you want to unmute and ask one of your questions quick to Jay? I know you have your hand up.
Yeah, absolutely. I got the whole concept and everything. Now, the other question I would like to know is, it's great for like content, the product development and whatnot.
Yeah.
If the other side of the party wish to make an adjustment directly on from this the hologram prototype, do you have the capability to make the adjustments in terms of the measurement wise and whatnot?
You do have the ability to manipulate models that come in. So you can explode, you can move parts around, anything that was in the model hierarchy from the source CAD. You also have the ability to annotate and leave notes. So you can leave text or annotation just like you could in a Google Doc. You can even make sketches on the phone or iPad and leave those sketches as annotations.
And who have you started to work with in terms of your customer base? Just out of curiosity.
So companies in apparel, aerospace, and information technology. So computer products have been the big ones.
Awesome. Thank you, Jay. Thank you so much, Regin, for asking your questions.
Okay.
All right, take care.
Awesome. So next up, we have Magnus Runnison. Magnus, it's great to have you here. He's been in the game industry since 1999 he first joined as an engine programmer for Starbreeze Studios. He's worked in AAA studios, EA, Ubisoft, among others, for 13 years before he joined Rovio and made mobile games. In 2016, Magnus joined Resolution Games, where he's the technical director of the new augmented and mixed reality division. Magnus, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm gonna share my screen. Here we go. Have a little presentation. Oh, hang on. All right, so thank you for having me. Today, I'm gonna talk a bit about mixing the real and the virtual, and what we did in Angry Birds to make the virtual world fit and look like it belongs in your living room. But first, I'm going to show you a trailer, a quick teaser for the game, so you know what I'm talking about. A bit of context. There's no sound, so I can sing a little bit. So that is what the game looks like. Okay, so let's get started. So the immersion, we focus quite a lot on the immersion part of the game, to the extent where we figured it's important that the game looks like it belongs in your room, and since it should be a physical level in your room.
Hey Magnus, you're breaking up a little bit and the slides are moving a bit slowly. Just wanted to give you a heads up.
Cool, thank you. All right, just let me know if I should repeat something. So we wanted the.
I'm hearing reports that the video didn't play for some folks. So if you could just give a brief overview on the Angry Birds AR game, I think it would just be helpful for context. Sorry about that.
Sure. Yes, sure, that's fine. Okay, so Angry Birds AR is. I hope you're familiar with the Angry Birds game. It's a casual mobile phone game where it's a physics-based game. So you throw birds at the tower and you're supposed to topple the tower, and the mobile game is in 2D. And what we did when we brought it to AR, we turned it into 3D. So you could place a tower in your living room and you can walk around the tower and you would throw birds at it or shoot with a slingshot. So that's the premise of the game.
Awesome.
And like I said before, we really wanted it to look like a tower in your living room. So, for example, we decided that some levels you had to complete by moving around your table and shooting the birds from different angles, whereas the more user-friendly approach should be that the player could rotate the level, for example. So when we started the project, we figured this is all about immersion. We really wanted to mix the real and the virtual, and we decided that uncomfortable gameplay doesn't really matter as long as it feels like it's there. Okay, so moving on. Let's see if I can move on. Can I move on? Okay, so I'm going to talk about some of the things we do. We play a bit with shadows. Shadows is a good way to connect the virtual with the real, because if the virtual object is casting shadows onto your real room, your brain figures this belongs, this is acceptable geometry. We also play with lights and color matching. We have particles for spatial understanding. I'm going to show a video of that later. And we also have virtual objects that refract the real world. I'm going to show all these effects soon. Okay, so let's start with the shadows. Shadows is a great way to connect, like I said, for the virtual and the real. So if you look at this pig, for example, it's a pig in the presentation, but adding a small, simple thing like a drop shadow, immediately you understand that the pig is lying on something because there's ambient occlusion around the pig. And that's a super simple effect. It's just a tiny little blob circle that's darkening the environment. So there are 3 different kinds of shadows. We have directional shadows, and we have ambient occlusion from the level, from dynamic objects, and there's ambient occlusion from static objects. So the directional shadows. So the directional shadows is the ones. Do I have a mouse pointer? No, sorry. The directional shadows are the one that's sort of coming in from the side. You can see to the left of the tower, for example, there's shadows from the tower. We have, let's see if I have more examples. So here there's directional shadows from the UI. Again, we wanted the game to really feel like it's in your living room. So we decided also to have menus be AR objects like this rather than like a 2D menu on the screen. So we have directional shadows from the UI. And this is sort of a zoom in, so you can see that the UI is actually hovering a little bit above your, your desk or your sofa. And also the birds cast directional shadows. And this is taken from in-game. So those are the 4 examples of directional shadows. And the directional shadows are quite simple. They're built into Unity. All we had to do was create a shader that can actually receive shadows. We did this project in Unity, and we did it when Apple had just released ARKit, Google had just released AR Core, so there wasn't really at the time Unity hadn't standardized or abstracted the specific hardware, so we had to do that ourselves. And there wasn't pre-existing shaders that could receive shadows, for example. So we had to write a shader for that. Next thing, ambient occlusion from level. So what this means is this is sort of the shadow coming in from above. So in this picture, you see the directional shadow behind the tower, but there's also a blocky shadow under the tower. So this is faking ambient occlusion from the top. And we do that by simply rendering the level from the bottom up. So the further away an object is, the lighter it is in the shadow. So you see, if you look at the red picture, for example, it's black in the middle, that's the base of the tower, and then there's platforms around it with a lighter and lighter shade. Let's see. So another example. This is what it looks like when it's running in real time. So then you can see how the texture. So what we do now is we render everything from the bottom. We render it into a grayscale texture that is 32 by 32 pixels wide. We scale it up to 128 times 128, and we blur that texture, and then we draw that texture on sort of ground level. So that was ambient occlusion on dynamic objects. We also have ambient occlusion on static objects, on props in the theme. This is an example of what it looks like on and off. Hope people can see this. Fingers crossed. So what we did for the, my mouse curses back, excellent. So what we do for ambient occlusion on static props, we simply build sort of we call it a skirt around the static props. So it's just we just hand make the geometry for the drop shadow or the ambient occlusion on static props. Okay, so that was just 3 kinds of shadows: directional shadows, ambient occlusion from level, and ambient occlusion from theme props. 2 minutes left. Okay, I'm gonna. We also play with light and color. So from the device, we get light intensity and light temperature estimation. We also have the environment texture, which we use as a skybox. And then we also apply a tint on the pass-through feed. So the light intensity, as you can see, when the light turns off, when the real light turns off, the light intensity in the scene also goes down. And this is just a value that's from ARKit. We pass it through a curve, so it's not linear, and then we apply it to the scene. So it's super simple stuff. And similar thing with the light temperature. We get the value from ARKit, we pass it to a gradient, and then we apply that as a color on our light. Environment texture is something we get from ARKit, and this is used for reflection. We can also use it as an environment texture, which gives us color on the virtual objects. So this is what it looks like when we're playing against a blue or red background. This is really effectful for coloring the whole virtual scene. I'm going to show the one more slide. I realize my time is up, but I didn't mention color tinting the pass-through feed. This is also something we do to adjust the pass-through feed so it matches the theme. So we have 4 themes in the game. It's a forest theme, a desert theme, a snow theme, and a disco theme. So what we do is we take the pass-through texture, which from ARKit comes as a, I forgot the name of it, YCDCR format. I don't remember the name, sorry. So we get 2 textures. We run those 2 textures through a shader that converts the values into RGB. And there's a fixed 4x4 matrix for doing that conversion. So all we need to do is tweak that matrix, and then we will get a slight color tint on the pass-through feed. I guess time is up.
Thank you, Magnus.
Thank you.
And it was great having you on. Now I'll pass it over to Barry for a question or 2. Barry, please. Hey, Barry.
Yes, thanks so much, Magnus. So we have a question. How is the Magic Leap mixed reality Angry Birds different from your AR Angry Birds?
From a gameplay point of view, it's actually the same. So this mobile AR is the same code base. It's the same physics. It's using some of the levels and additional levels. So from a gameplay point of view, it's the same, but visually it's quite different given that the mobile AR is passed through. So we can actually darken, we can add shadows. In mobile AR, we can't do that in those transparent screens.
Awesome. Thank you, Magnus.
Interesting. Thank you. Have a great night. Thanks for staying up late.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Awesome. Next up, we're really excited to have with us Jerry Ellsworth. Jerry is an inventor, chip designer, an entrepreneur with over 20 plus years experience designing and creating mass market consumer electronics. She gained fame in 2004 for building a complete Commodore 64 system on a chip housed within a joystick called C64 Direct-to-TV. It ran 30 video games from the early 1980s and at peak sold over 70,000 units in a single day via the QVC shopping channel. Really incredible. And in 2011, she was hired by Valve Software to build and run their R&D team and was a key contributor to the technology used in the popular HTC Vive virtual reality headset. While at Valve, she began working on the AR technology that would become the basis for the tech behind Tilt 5, where Jerry serves as CEO and co-founder. She is a gamer at heart, holds 11 patents, and also owns 80 pinball machines. Thank you, Jerry, for being here with us.
Oh, thanks. Oh boy, that stuff from Magnus was amazing. All that applies to our system as well. So take it all in and use it. All right, so they tell you never to do more than one slide per minute. I have 33, so we're gonna have to haul through here. Get your cane ready to pull me off the stage because it's gonna be tough to squeeze this all in here. Yeah, I've done a lot in my career. I've done things like rockets, navigation systems, consumer products, things like that. But what really gets me excited is products that have the potential to go into hundreds of millions of homes. And so ever since I was at Valve, I've been dreaming of the day that AR is in everyone's home. Part of the presentation today will be just discussing, what Tilt 5 is, and then I'm going to do a little experimental stuff. We'll take a little trip back in history lane, look at some retro game consoles. And I hear that Carl actually invented the video chip for some of these, which is super exciting. And then I'll end up at the end talking about what we're doing to try to replicate, the explosive growth the game console industry took. So the basic concept behind our system is glasses you slip on and you sit around the table with all your friends and you play a video game on the table. It's a dream I've had ever since I was a kid. Play games with my dad or my brother, and it's fundamentally broken. You can't really play multiplayer games very well in your home. You have to have multiple TVs, you have to have multiple game consoles, and it's a broken experience. And so that is one of the main objectives that we're trying to solve. Plus, it's freaking holograms, as you saw from our t-shirt, which makes it even more exciting. We want it to also be a great solo experience, so it'll be just exciting if it's a solo experience. And if your friends can't come over to join you or your family's not around, you can link game boards together. So just call your friends up and say, hey, let's go attack some village and plunder, and you can just jump right in. So this is the system. Comes with 3 components. So there's the headset. And so there's a lot going on in the headset. I can't cover it all, but it has a massive field of view. It's super bright. It draws very vivid colors. It fills your whole table with this magic universe that just spills out. It also has a processor built in that offloads all the compute from the phone that you could plug into or the PC so that game engines and computers don't have to run at crazy frame rates like you have to do with VR systems. Has built-in speaker and microphone for telephony so you can connect with your friends over distance. Has cameras for doing hand and gesture tracking so that even if you're not in the same room, you can be moving your hands through the scene, and those can show up telepresence, or you can reach in and touch things. Another core part of our system is the magic wand. It's funny, people say it looks like a barbecue lighter. That's not a mistake. I'll cover that in a few minutes, but it's a very intuitive way to interact with holograms on the table, because everyone knows how to poke something with a stick. Everyone knows how to pull one trigger on a hot glue gun or a barbecue lighter. And so even if you're not a gamer, a video gamer, you can pick this up and have instant fun. And then there's the game board, and the game board is actually an optical component in our system, and it's critical for the beautiful images that we create and the ability to draw blacks and high contrast images, which is kind of the holy grail for augmented reality. And as pointed out in one of the previous presentations about accuracy between each player, we have a similar thing around our game board. Those dots are very critical so that every single player sitting around the table has a very accurate position within this virtual world. So here's a quick view. Sorry, these are GIFs. They're probably running at half a frame per second, but this gives you a feel of like some of the interactions with the wand in this world that just springs out of the table, but also extends infinitely into the table. Here's some experiences using hand tracking. So you can see, reach in, touch robots, and have them directly interact with you. It's just pure magic. We also have the ability to track real world objects. So if you're a board game fanatic, you can bring in your real world minis and miniatures and playing cards. We can detect what's on the cards. We can detect where your mini is. We can wrap it with graphics. We can teleport avatar representation of your miniature across the world. Really cool. And this is also a really important part of making the system relatable, so that even if you're not a hardcore gamer, you can play it just like a board game. So here's some technical aspects of how the system works and how the game board works. So we actually turn the optical problem inside out. So instead of putting light directly into your eyes, we project out the special game board. And this game board has what's called a retroreflector on it. And this retroreflector takes light rays that are emitted from your glasses and returns it directly back to each user. That means each user gets their own view into this volumetric space and can interact. That opens up a lot of opportunities for the game developer to do various types of asymmetrical and symmetrical views. So what we're representing here is you may have a D&D game going. The dungeon master sees everything, and the other players don't see the bad guys coming up until the fog of war is lifted, and it heightens this kind of theatrics that you can do with the system. So I want to take a quick journey back in time. First thing I did is I looked at projections of how big VR and AR was going to be, and I just laughed at all these projections from about 2013, where it was going to be $200 billion in just a couple of years, bigger than the video game market overnight. And of course, that I've never seen a market that grows that fast, and I was always skeptical of it, and sure enough, it's not that big yet. But let's analyze, what could happen if companies like ours take stepping stones in the right direction. So the top chart shows the video game industry and video game consoles as they evolved over time, and the chart below shows like home computers and PCs. They're slow ramp. There's a lot of opportunity, billions of dollars of opportunity in the early days, and opportunities for companies to become dominant players in the early days, the folks that get there, the Apples, the Microsofts, various companies that can see 10, 20 years into the future. So if we take a look at early game consoles, what's interesting is this console up in the upper left, the channel F, was before everything, like 2, 3, maybe 4 years before any of the game consoles, got no traction. You go back and you look at their advertisements for it, they didn't know how to advertise it. The input scheme is really wacky. Nothing is standardized at this point. Then comes along Pong, a little bit to the right, with just like a really dead simple, input scheme, just 2 knobs, but it was relatable. Everyone knew how to play tennis. Anyone could turn a knob, and boom, the video games industry starts to take off. Even though all of these other units here were far more capable than the lowly little Pong machine. I was a little surprised when I looked at the Atari 2600, which was kind of the manifestation of what we think of a game console, the first kind of successful console, was only in 30 million homes. Being a child of the 70s and 80s, I thought that it was probably, in 400 million homes, but it was only 30 million homes. But it was a stepping stone to get people acclimated and start to shift the user's behavior to understand how to interact with video experiences on the screen. And then after the 2600, there were all kinds of interesting consoles out here. I think Carl worked on the video chip on one of these in here. But you can see how the industry was kind of flailing with, like, what's the input like? What's the software like? How do we market this? And it's really fascinating if you go back and look at marketing for all these different consoles. They hadn't figured out how to market it to a broad audience. Going back to this, brilliant marketing on this, even though it was probably inferior to other things on the market, but it showed families and groups coming together and having the time of their life in the living room. Then the Nintendo comes in, just dominates. Now you're playing with power. They figured it out. They had a broad cross-section of software that appealed to pretty much everyone in the home. You had mom and dad and the kids. Everyone was playing this thing, but still only 62 million units. Pretty interesting, huh? I thought it was much bigger myself. But quickly things evolved and you start to see things standardizing. Look at the controllers. They all kind of look the same here. And now we're starting to get into really huge $200 billion markets. But this took about 30 years to get here. The last retro console I want to talk to before I run out of time is this unit here. Now, this was an oddball, which I find very interesting. So this was a breakout success, sold tremendously well, but it didn't sell to the hardcore gamers that had grown up on games and had got acclimated to these complex input schemes like the Xbox style controllers. It sold to grandma, grandpa, families. Non-gamers got introduced to games because of this and then migrated over to PlayStation 5s. A really amazing device, all because they put a motion controller on it that was intuitive and easy to use. So now back to Tilt 5, and our belief in how the AR market needs to grow, especially around entertainment, is not only an amazing piece of hardware, but we have to wrap it with amazing content and be able to have a message that anybody can understand, right? Our message is, if you know how to use a board game, you can play a video game on our system. And then we've gone out and worked with just gobs and gobs of third-party developers to bring their content over. And it's a wide variety of content. So on the video game side, over half of the content we have is pure video games. So it's everything you can imagine: action, puzzle, RPG, racing, strategy. We want to appeal to every type of gamer out there. But then there's the sandbox content, which I'm personally super excited about. This is free-form play. This is something that, non-gaming dad could pick up and play with the kids. It's extruding sand or carving, through play, putting emojis out onto the table, things like Figment XR. And then for folks that are just really into board games, this breathes new life into tabletop gaming. Now you can just instantly drop into a game. There's no setup. You can save it. You can come back to it later, your friends that can't be in the same room. We're going to break down tons of barriers in the board game space and make board games even more popular. So quickly, I'm going to run through the evolution of how we got here. So this was the first prototype I built at Valve. Some at the company called it gravel for the eyes. It was super early, but I saw the potential in it. Valve didn't want to go forward with it. So I left the company and started chasing this 10-year dream. This was actually well before anyone was doing wand controllers. This was the first wand controller Valve had that I built. I still miss this today because those little trackers, little silver things on the end would telescope out and you could reach across the table with it and smack each other's controllers. It was a really great experience. This sold me on poking things with a stick is the right interaction to be appealing to a broad audience. So after leaving Valve, we did a bunch of prototypes. They were really ugly. It was just proving the concept. Some say they were even embarrassing. It's kind of embarrassing. This one's covered in lots of hot glue, but it showed the potential if you squinted really hard and imagined. We kept refining. We got industrial designers involved, did all kinds of crazy industrial design, what would be relatable. This was called the Iris, which I really liked, but it was too polarizing to move forward with. I was delighted to see Magic Leap do circular goggles, because I really liked this one. This one I called the Sad Puppy, probably offended our industrial designers. We did tons and tons of research. You got to be able to wear these glasses. Our goal is that you forget that you're wearing the glasses. You'd be in it for a couple hours and you're like, oh my God, I've been playing this for 2 hours and I didn't even realize it. And it takes a lot of work, thousands and thousands of experiments. What's the wand supposed to be like? There were tons of different iterations. My favorite being the pancake flipper one there, but didn't really fit into the poke the stick model that we just decided was the best interaction. After all that work, you end up with an industrial design that you're happy with and you have to produce it. So on the good news, last week we got our first shipment of glasses in after tremendous work having to deal with China manufacturing in COVID and not being able to travel there. Me admiring 10 years of work, I was just so happy about this. And I'm happy to say it probably happened while I was sitting in this meeting. First batch of units just got put into the post and are going out to Kickstarter backers. It's amazing. So in conclusion, head to our website, check out the content we've announced. We have a ton of content coming. We have some really big licensed content that we're going to be announcing in a certain amount of time. I don't know, our marketing folks are working on that. And you can reserve your unit now, just a couple bucks, and you can get in line. They are back ordering really fast, and we're trying to get manufacturing up as fast as possible. How did I do? How far over am I?
That was awesome. Thank you, Jerry, and congratulations on the launch.
Thank you.
I'm super excited. I can't wait to try a pair out myself.
You should have came to AWE. We were the bell of all there. It was so fun.
I know. Okay, next year, hopefully.
All right. Well, you'll have a unit by then, I'm sure.
Okay, cool. Yeah, definitely. Barry, do we have any questions for Jerry?
We do have a question for Mike. And thanks again, Jerry. It's awesome as usual. It said, given how unique and flexible the approach to AR is, in addition to gaming, I'm really curious about potential applications and productivity and accessibility. Any developers in those areas, in those arenas yet?
Yeah, I neglected to mention that. So we've sent out hundreds and hundreds of developer kits, and a lot of those are going to non-gaming applications. So when my co-founder Jamie and I bootstrapped Tilt 5, we knew that we needed laser focus and to optimize the system to do one thing really well and not try to boil the ocean like a lot of the other AR systems out there. But we knew there was going to be problems that could be solved in more professional use cases. And now that the devices are out there, their friends are talking about it, people saw it at AWE, we're just getting tons of companies coming in and doing non-gaming applications. In fact, at AWE, we were there showing only game content. There were 4 or 5 others that had Tilt 5 kits, and they were showing non-gaming applications. There was a company, Nucleus VR, that's training astronauts for the European Space Agency. There's Bad VR that's doing data visualization. There's Arcturus that's doing volumetric capture. There's Cavernous that's doing a productivity tool. It was super exciting. Like all of these other vertical markets are developing without us having to compromise our main mission. Going forward, we're going to expand out, and this market is going to be so huge in the next 20 years. We can carve out a huge chunk of it, and then the real battle of who's going to dominate AR is going to be out there in the future, and hopefully we'll be well primed to pull that off.
Thank you, Jerry. It's great having you.
Thank you. It's an honor.
If you have any more questions for Jerry, add them in the chat, reach out to her on LinkedIn, and if she's still around at the end, we'll have the opportunity for some more Q&A. Now, thank you. Awesome. Now, without further ado, excited to have Carl Guttag with us tonight. He has 43 years of experience in the areas of display devices and systems, including heads-up displays and near-eye displays, graphics and image processors, digital signal processing, memory architecture, and CPU architecture, and consumer video devices in augmented and virtual reality. He also writes the technical blog KG on Technology. It's a leading source of technical information on the micro displays, small projectors, augmented reality headset, and heads-up displays for automotive use. Over 20,000 people read his articles in a single month. And he is a named inventor on 150 issued US patents, including key patents related to display devices, graphics, imaging processors, graphics interface circuits, microprocessors, signal processing, synchronous DRAMs, and video graphic DRAM. Billions of dollars of revenue have been attributed to products using these fabulous inventions. And here to close off with the final presentation of the year of New York Augmented Reality, I am proud to welcome back Carl Guttag.
Thank you. Yeah, let's, this actually, they asked me to do this presentation and I thought, well, it's December again. And back in December 2015, Display Daily asked me to do an article. And I said, you know what, maybe it's time to revisit the subject. So that article was titled, Sorry, No Santa Claus. And decided, so we're going to kind of revisit that tonight to see how things have changed and more how things have mostly stayed the same. So, you know, the basic, and I'm probably the resident skeptic in the AR world, so I'm sort of known for being a bit skeptical. Matter of fact, I was at AWE a few years ago, and I walked up to somebody and they kind of said, "Oh, we love reading your blog when it's not about us." So anyway, one of the things I see is the gap between what people are, the concepts versus reality. So people are imagining Ray-Ban sunglasses, and Facebook/Meta this year showed us how much display they could fit into Ray-Ban sunglasses, precisely 0. But basically people start off with Ray-Ban sunglasses and they end up with something that looks more like a helmet. Similarly, when they show their video feed or when they show their concepts, they show you this perfect image, when in reality it looks, this is as good an image as I've ever seen, and it's a very good representation of what HoloLens 2 actually looks like when you look at it. So I also go through the thing of the tree of expectations. So people may know the swing, you know, people ask for a hanging swing and versus what they get. And I've kind of done my own analogy, which is you start with Ray-Ban sunglasses. Everyone expects it to look like an OLED TV set, high quality, 4K, all that. It often looks like something less than that. The headset doesn't end up as small as they like. People think they've got a minimum viable product, but it doesn't work out. A lot of times you have computer requirements. If you have to have a cable, it's really bad. People look like totally strange alien beasts when they wear it. People don't expect to pay very much, particularly for a consumer product. And none of it today is in high volume. So this is what I wrote in 2015. I just took the article and cut out my bullet points and kind of edited them down a little bit to fit on a slide because it was in a more of a written long form. But this kind of shows where I was at in 2015. And unfortunately, the list has grown because this is my kind of my 2021 version. And we're going the wrong way. We're adding, the more I learn about it, the more things we have to add. And, you know, these are everything from cost to what you look like to resolution. And I have my catch-all category, which is things that just don't work right. There's a real problem that when you try to put up things out there, your eye, I believe, can feel the difference in what you, in what's there versus what you see. So your eyes kind of saying, yeah, I know it looks kind of right, but it's not. And this causes all kinds of conflict. One of my biggest points I like to make is that, okay, there's on the order of at least 20 major things. each one of these things is just massive problems. And generally, when you try to go fixing one, you make others worse. For example, with the latest Magic Leap 2, they're working on dimming. So they're going to dim the backlight. Well, when you do that, you also dim the real world. And you can't, and you try to do that. And every optics layer, everything you do that you add also has a negative effect. It's going to affect something else on this list, sometimes many of them. So what you end up doing is kind of trading. So when I look at this thing, I'm looking at fairly glacial type progress. The progress is not, we got to fix one thing and boom, it's all done. No, you fix one thing on this list and you've got 21 left to solve now. So we definitely see a lot of what I call the AR FUMO, which is basically, I kind of measure this starting from project class. Kind of like you get, there was kind of this flurry of activity where we saw Project Class announced, and then Facebook acquires Oculus for $2 billion. And now we're off to the races. It's kind of like everybody's jumping at HoloLens. Microsoft announces that they're working on HoloLens. And then about the same time, that same period, you've got Magic Leap raising like $3 billion+. So that really puts this thing in overdrive. Finally, Magic Leap 1 announces we see a downtrend. Tim Cook's out there saying, you know, I sometimes say that Zuckerberg is a true believer, whereas Tim Cook is just held hostage to the believers in his company. And then, you know, we've seen HoloLens 2 get announced in 2019. And if that wasn't enough, we're now in overdrive where all of the mass media now has jumped in now that Facebook has renamed themselves Campfire, is it? Or no, Meta. That's right. Anyway, so, you know, one thing I warn everyone on is that do not believe these numbers you're seeing. There are analysts who were born yesterday, almost literally, and analysts make their money by selling reports. That's how they make their money. Their whole thing of putting out a big number is to sell reports, and bigger numbers sell more reports. So analysts, if they're going to sell reports to their customers, want to see bigger numbers. They, you know, the customers that buy those reports want to see bigger numbers. They're often bought by companies trying to convince investors to buy their to invest in them. So they have a very definite feedback loop that bigger numbers drive bigger numbers. Consultants, they're going to work where they get more work by being optimistic. You know, tell customers what they want to hear. If you tell a customer it's not going to be a big market, they go, as a consultant, they go and say, well, I need to go to somebody who tells me it's going to be a big market. If they believe you that it's not going to be a big market, then they go away. So you're much better, you're much more likely to get work by being optimistic. Researchers want to get paid for working on fun stuff. I have a very good friend who's been at a couple of companies, but when he was on his way to Google at one time, I said, you know, what you're working on is never going to be a product. It's like pounding rocks. And he said, Carl, you don't understand. It's really interesting and fun work, and I get paid well. And it changed my perspective, because my perspective, as Jerry mentioned, I worked on the original Sprite chip that went in ColecoVision. So I still have that kind of verb of wanting to be in you know, high volume products or get products to market. Almost every chip I worked on at TI went to market. And I like things that turn into product. But I realized that there's a whole nother side of this where researchers, it's about the research. You know, if you get paid well for working on really neat technical stuff, and we see a lot of that in this industry right now. And so we've seen this kind of pipeline of people going from Google to HoloLens. I had to update this slide a few times to Meta or Apple. So there's kind of this pipeline of people filtering through the industry who have bounced around from company to company. As I say, the tech giants other than Meta have FUMO. I really do believe Zuckerberg's a true believer. So anyway, and then all this is a self-greasing hype cycle. So everybody's, the FOMO and fear of missing out. They got to keep saying it. I'm not going to get into a lot of technical detail because there's not time in a 10-minute overview. But the basic thing is AR is difficult because, and I'm thinking mostly AR, like in terms of see-through optical AR. Is difficult because we have to put the display in the wrong place because we really want to put the display in front of the eye. We now have to figure out a way to get the optics around to the eye, and we have to figure out a way to get the light from the real world into the eye while we get the display light into the eye. And whatever mixes that together messes up both. So there's no really good way. So we're in a bad location. We're not able to put the display where we want. We're not able to put it the distance from the eye we want. That's the other big thing. If I want to make something look big, I have to move this display closer and closer to the eye. Most people think optics do magnification. They do a little magnification, but most of the magnification and the enlargement comes by shoving that display closer to the eye. And unfortunately, thanks to AR, we got to move the optics. We have to move the display further from the eye because we got to get the display out of the way so you can see the real world. Obviously, Tilt 5 has a whole different approach. They kind of break every rule that's in this presentation. I think I'll skip by this a little bit other than to say, as I said before, we have the big problem in AR is the combining. We have to figure out a way to combine the display's light with the real world's light. And everything in this combination process wastes a lot of light from the display. It blocks light, it distorts the real world. So this is a really hard problem. I was meeting with one company at one time, said, people think AR is like twice as hard as VR. And he said, no, it's really more like 10 times harder. And I'm now believing it's more than 10 times harder. So it's a really hard problem to go from VR to AR. So some people say, why don't we just do pass-through AR, put a camera, and you're seeing a lot of this these days too. There's a lot of talk Apple's going to be doing this. Oh, I'll just put a camera in front of the eyes. And the company I'm looking at, and I've been working on an article when I kind of got diverted off into looking at some work on Meta, is a company called Lynx. They're doing a pass-through AR. Apple's looking at it. And, the problem is you don't solve the problems. You just moved everything to a different set of problems. I mean, yes, you get better image quality. You can do hard edge occlusion, but even within hard edge occlusion, you still have a serious alignment problem that the camera and the eye are not perfectly aligned with each other. And that creates all kinds of problems. You can't actually block things exactly right. So you get halos or something else around the objects when you're doing that. It's simpler and less expensive lenses. It doesn't have to dominate the ambient. That's one of our biggest problems in AR. If you go outside in daylight and look at a concrete sidewalk, it's about 6,000 nits. So, your computer monitors 400, a couple of hundred nits, 200 nits range. Your cell phone might be 500 nits when it's outdoors, maybe 700 at the high end. But the concrete sidewalk you look at is 10,000 nits. So now if you start mixing those two, you're mixing something that's thousands of nits with a display that might, to your eye, might only be a few hundred nits, and that's not going to work. You either have to totally black out the real world or whatever. So it's a problem. And then, the problem we have is once we do pass-through, so let's say we do pass-through AR, if we look at it compared to optical AR, we have a fixed focus of the real world. Now, I know one of the big topics in my blog this week has been, I've been looking at varifocal with Meta. My thought is that they're still having, I still don't sure the image quality, once you do that varifocal that way, is going to be good enough. I think they bought, Imagine Optics for probably more to have in reserve for future stuff. You have orders of magnitude less dynamic range. Your eye is it has an insane dynamic range. It can work from sub nits to tens of thousands of nits. I think it starts to, you get above 100,000 nits, you start doing, you start becoming damaging to the eye. But it has this range from a fraction of a nit all the way to hundreds of thousands of nits. Nothing in the display world can match it. So you lose that when you start talking about going to a display that might be, 8 bits or 10 bits or 12 bits. And then, so we have orders of magnitude less dynamic range. You have much lower resolution in the real world. Typically, you have whatever, no matter how fast you do it, there's some level of motion to photon delay from the time the camera sees it to the time you respond. You always are going to have imperfect alignment and parallax issues. The camera's never in the perfect location. It's got to be not only centered on the eye, but it really should be on the eye. That's one of the reasons like Lynx put an emphasis on making the optics thinner. It's one of the reasons why people are looking a lot at pancake optics. They're trying to get the optic. One of the reasons you have to make those optics thinner is because you do reduce that, but there's still some there. And then a big issue, and this is true of all of AR, is safety issues that are really grossly underappreciated. Like if you're going to put cables coming off of your equipment, you're going to have safety problems. If you start blocking people's peripheral vision, it becomes unsafe. We like to say in the AR industry or in the display industry that peripheral vision is what kept you getting eaten by the tiger. Well, now it's what keeps you from getting hit by the car or running into a piece of dangerous machinery. If you start blocking peripheral vision and start hurting it, you got problems. One thing I must say about everything in AR, you have confused use cases. This is one of my big things. One of the things I really liked about Tilt 5 is they didn't have a confused use case. I actually could, you actually saw the thing and you could see what the use case was. Not most other products, they say they're going after, say, enterprise, and this is one of my big complaints today with Magic Leap, is that they say they're going after the enterprise market, but they clearly made all these compromises in their headset aimed at consumer. So it's clearly a consumer product going after a enterprise market. We really have to ask ourselves about field of view. Chasing field of view is not something you're doing typically to augment what you're doing. Certainly in the enterprise world, you're really going after immersion and gameplay. If you're trying to build an airplane or build a car or something like that, you really are not after immersion, you're after something else. The current market is 100,000, maybe 200,000 units a year. The problem is that's what the enterprise market is. When we're talking enterprise market, we're talking a market that probably caps at about 200,000 right now. It's pushing on a rope to get it to go further. You don't see people wearing these headsets everywhere. You will see them doing it. The sales pitch is easy in enterprise. Hey, wear this $5,000 headset, including software and everything, and I can save you a few percent per year on your labor. If I save you 5% on your labor, I make that person 5% more efficient, it pays for itself. It's an easy sales pitch. Not so easy when you get away from the enterprise. That's why enterprise is kind of the one area where things are selling. And as I say, if you can say, HoloLens 2 has probably about the absolute worst display I've seen. It's absolutely horrid. But they got the ergonomics right. They've got a fairly good slam by today's standards. And that's what they're selling. So what it teaches you is if you're in the enterprise market, image quality is probably the least important thing. It's really more about other factors. And then there's a lot of worry about, I'll call second order issues. They are important, but they're still second order, like vergence accommodation conflict. Everybody is working on this problem that if you're going to do stereo vision, that the eyes need to, where the eyes verge, which is the vergence, has to agree with where the eyes are focused. That's the accommodation. And that's a problem for people. And then there's this whole data snacking thing. Like we saw some things earlier, we have, the data snacking is not exactly the well, it's not proven that there's a market for that. Why do you need data snacking if the watch has a better image than what you can put on in your field of view? A lot of people, it's kind of like this, a very narrow market where people have to be totally hands-free. By the way, that's the other thing. Most uses that I see happening with real uses almost always involve hands-free. So you now have to think about input. You know, and I'm not a big fan of the people who say monitors, you know, saying headsets are about to replace monitors is just ridiculous. As I sometimes say, the cheapest monitor or TV at Best Buy blows away a headset. If you look through any of these headsets, even the best of them, and you went to Best Buy and looked at that as a television set, you wouldn't buy it. So big issue. And then of course, human factors is huge. So there's a few guys out there, it's what I call the $1 billion club. You know, the main ones are Meta. I have a saying that if you can dream it, Meta has tried it. I think that's pretty well true. As I said, Zuckerberg's a true believer. Apple, you know, there's a lot of reports right now that they're going to be doing pass-through AR. Could be true. You know, people do dumb things all the time. You know, I don't think Tim Cook's a believer. I think Tim Cook's really a businessman, but he's told he believes, so he believes. I always felt like that when I see him talk about AR. It's like he's like a note behind. If you ever heard of somebody who's kind of singing along and they don't really know the words, he feels to me like he's a note behind. Microsoft seems to be retreating a bit. I get the sense that they're kind of sitting there saying, oops, that they're retreating. We have Snap. I think Snap bought, you know, they bought Wave Optics. And I think that was a reaction to Microsoft and other companies buying people. I think they didn't want to get, most people in the industry think they way overpaid for Wave Optics, but they bought them because that they saw other people getting bought, and who wants to spend a huge amount of money developing a headset only to find out the technology disappeared. Another object lesson, though, you know, like I say, very soon before Snap bought Wave Optics, right before that, Meta had bought, or not really bought, but they acquired all the rights of the output to Plessey. So they acquired all the output of Plessey, and there were like 5 companies who had to go scrambling who were working with Plessey at the time. So I don't think they wanted to see that. Niantic is an interesting company. They're coming at this from a whole different angle, and they're doing a lot of stuff. They're doing a lot of seeding of this market because they're the guys behind, of course, the Pokemon Go, the others, and other type of augmented reality games. And they're looking to say, hey, it'd be nice if we could do some headsets and stuff. So they seem to be seeding the market. And then there's the ever-present sinker, black hole of VC money, Magic Leap, who's probably done a lot to hurt the industry because they've soaked up so much of the VC cash. I think I'm going to wrap up with this one. One thing I like to explain to people is there's no one kind of right display technology, and there's no right way kind of to do optics. And I've been trying to map them out to say, well, what kind of goes with what? And right now, you know, much of the stuff that looks good is done in LCOS. The best looking thing I've seen in the last year has probably been Loomis with their waveguides and LCOS. Now I'm an old LCOS guy. A lot of people think I'm biased that way. Maybe I am. I see DLP is somewhat in retreat a bit. I still see some DLP. Snap is using DLP, but I know Wave Optics was on the move before they were acquired by Snap. They were moving towards LCOS. They were doing LCOS designs. See the same thing at DigiLens. They were what was basically a DLP house that is pretty heavy into LCOS these days. Anyway, so we have you know, people think I'm really anti-laser beam scanning. Well, I am because it looks bad. I get frustrated by it because laser beam scanning sounds simple. There's a very dedicated community to it. I mean, there's a religious faction to a religious component to laser beam scanning. Unfortunately, the image quality really looks bad. I just had a chance to do that again when I was at AWE, and the problem there is that it looks bad. Micro LED made a lot of news. I've been watching micro LED now for about 4 or 5 years. One of the things I like to warn people is sometimes when a technology is kind of like the first time you hear about it, you think the progress is like really going to the moon fast. But I've now had about 4 or 5 years with micro LED, and I've realized the slope of that curve is a lot less. And one thing I also tell people is when somebody tells you about a technology, they're marketing it. All these companies are marketing, so they're only telling you about all the good stuff. So you get all the good stuff. One of the things I sometimes say about my blog is I'm left to tell you the reality of it, and it sounds negative. Well, it sounds negative because you've already heard the good marketing stuff. So I'm left to kind of fill in the pieces, and most of what I'm left with is the bad side that they're not telling you. And micro LED is a bit that way. I mean, it's a very immature technology still. The image quality is really poor. I think it's appropriate maybe in single color. You know, the color is a big problem. Also has a huge amount of pixel to pixel inconsistency. People may know when the case of OLEDs, there's a thing called moire, where there's a little mottling color in the back, and they kind of compensate for that. Basically on a TV set, they compensate every pixel to take out that thing. Well, the pixel differences I've seen in every sample I've seen of a micro LED, there might be 10x the difference in brightness from pixel to pixel. You can't compensate for that. So the pictures look very noisy. I think it's going to be acceptable for maybe a small information display. There are markets for informational display, but I don't think they're the markets, they're not consumer. There tend to be markets where somebody, once again, it has to be hands-free, needs a little information, hands-free becomes a requirement. There's also stuff that are farther out, like phase. There's phase LCOS, where you can do phase and you do lasers and you build holograms and stuff. And then of course we have, and this is what Campfire is doing, is what I call the basically flat panel LCD technology with a large curve combiner. That gives you very good image quality. It's a bit distorted, the focus is a little off, but it does give you a big field of view, and it does leverage cheap stuff. You do end up with a big dome head, but at least it does work. And then, as I say, I think TIL5 kind of breaks the mold quite a bit. They don't even fit in this category because this is really all about how do you get the glasses, and TIL5 is a whole different game. So I think with that, I will call it a day on this and stop sharing the screen, and I guess we're back.
Thank you, Carl. It was amazing to hear from you. I know we have a question or two from the
Definitely
audience.
broke a little bit of the China.
Yep. Also, I know it's overtime and we're past 8, so appreciate you guys sticking on. But we then have a question or two for Jerry, if that's okay with you. I know we're over, but wanted to get the chance to ask. Awesome. So Barry, if you'd like to ask the questions, please take it away.
Okay, so we have someone who is really psyched to get your device, another person, and they asked, what are some of the ways you can develop or create games for the TIL5, Jerry?
Well, that's a great question. So we have a really easy to use SDK. We're super proud of it because we put a lot of work into making it drag and drop so you can bring it into Unity and Unreal. And then we also put a lot of work into real-time editing, which is for folks that have done VR development, is quite a challenge where you have to build a project, download it to the headset, and then put your headset on, try it. On our system, right in the Unity editor, you can hit the play button. You can see it instantly on the board next to your PC. You can drag things around and edit them and tweak them in real time. So development goes really quick. Many of our third-party developers find that if they have an existing game, for example, it takes a month or two to port over an existing game with all of the tweaks and bringing in, our wand and making it special for 12.5. But typically, just to get your scene or get your game that already that you put together, it's like a 5-minute job to get things rendering.
Nice. Okay, another question I believe is for you. I was throwing questions after your talk. How does Unity, the Unity app read in the perspective reflection information to adjust the individual camera?
Yeah, in our headset, we have a processor that's doing high-speed tracking. So it's tracking the game board, figuring out where the user's position is, and it sends a coordinate down to the game engine. Game engine, part of our SDK, sets up 2 cameras, positions them for where the user's head position is, and then it blitz over a USB asynchronously the images as it's rendered. And then in the headset, we have a tight loop on a reprojection engine that's adjusting and upscaling the image from whatever frame rate the game is running at. So say the game's running at 30 frames a second, it upscales it to 180 fields per second, and repositions it depending on your head position. So that's why when you use our system, you don't have to have a big beefy PC. You can use a phone or any medium grade PC. Unlike VR, where you have to have a pretty beefy PC to keep up a really high frame rate.
Wow. Didn't they get people to the moon like on like a less computing power than the average cell phone? So that's my analogy there. Okay, so there's a question. So thanks again, Jerry. Awesome. Thanks for sticking around. Jerry, is there any, not Jerry, sorry, I'm confused. I'm driving and all these fun things, trying not to kill anybody or myself. Carl, is there any promising technology out there for doing per pixel occlusion for see-through AR? So regular see-through AR, or is that basically impossible?
Yeah, my thought is that it may violate laws of physics. I'm really skeptical. Now, Jerry's works pretty darn well. It's actually, there's a lot of things that I'm really anxious. I've ordered one of Tilt5's, but I'm anxious to see it in more detail. But there's some things that work real interesting with the way she does it. But it's a almost impossible problem. The physics of trying to block light is next to impossible. I wrote about this quite a bit on Magic Leap 2. I think there's a thing in there. I've looked at their patents on how they block light, and I've got some things on the blog on that article that talk about why it's so hard. Basically, the problem you have is the light from the real world is not focused. And so if you put a dot, if I put a dot the size of a pixel on say my glasses, you won't even see it. If it didn't, it would drive you crazy, because you couldn't wear anything with all. If you take them off and look at them carefully, you'll see all kinds of little dots and smudges and stuff on glasses. Inevitably, you'd be cleaning them constantly. But what happens is the light rays just go right around it, and I don't know of any way to get there. I think that's one of the big pipe dreams. And like I say, and as I put up, even pass-through AR makes it a lot easier, because you can swap out pixels. You can say, take away this pixel and put that one in. It's really good for doing that. But what it can't do is perfectly align the mask and whatnot. That gets to be really hard. Now, theoretically, you might be able to solve that problem with pass-through AR. The problem with pass-through AR is now focus of the real world. It's kind of funny. The focus of the occlusion is out of focus with real AR. But guess what? The depth of the real world works. All the focus in the real world works. When you go to pass-through AR, now all of a sudden the focus doesn't work. You've got one plane of focus. And of course, this is part of what my latest series on Meta is talking about, is about how they're trying to do varifocal, and then they're going to try to make it up by blurring. And they have a thing called, I think it's called deep focus. It's trying to fix the blur up. But it's I think in optical, I think there's probably, you've got to violate laws of physics. I found that there's the University of Arizona thing where they did it, and they work for one focus plane. So if you have a bookshelf or a flat wall, you can block a point on a flat wall with a lot of hardware. But as soon as you put like 2 depths of focus, the thing blows up. It doesn't work. So
can I interject here as well? Like, there isn't a display text.
Sure.
I haven't tried to build, and we did all the simple, occluders that you would imagine, taking waveguides and putting pixelated LCDs in front of them, and it really is a mess. Even if you could do a vignetted style occluder and accept the vignetting, all of the ITO and the wires that you have to put in front of your eyes become a mess because of the diffraction around the wires, and we didn't get anywhere with it.
You think Magic Leap solved it?
Ugh. No comment.
Isn't Deep Optics working? Deep Optics is working on some variofocus optics as well, right? With their technology.
Yeah, they're the first time I've seen it working. There's also HiMax. Has got a thing on their website where they've got a varifocus. You can do it with one of the neat but you have to polarize light. One of the first problems you have is you have to polarize, and as soon as you polarize light, you lose 60% of the light that's coming in. But you got to polarize it. But liquid crystals are birefringent. They can change the focus of light, and there's several ways to do it. This company that Meta bought, there's a different way where you build kind of the focus change into the frozen polymer liquid crystal, and then you have a switchable liquid crystal behind it. But anyway, they're almost all the techniques I'm seeing that are electronic are doing it that way. Now you can also, for focus, do things like fluid filled, but they have their problems. There's several guys working on fluid filled. But liquid crystals is the electronic way. Of course, you can put motors and gears in there and move lenses back and forth, each of which have their own downsides. But the problem you have with liquid crystal is all the liquid crystal solutions I've seen all involve requiring polarized light. And that's a big problem, because right off the bat, like I say, you have to darken the room by about 60%.
Yeah, that's a problem. Okay, I think we've got most of the questions answered as far as I can see, unless I miss anything, Andy. It's been awesome.
I had one question, Roland, for Magnus, and then one more regarding hardware till 5, which could be taken by Jerry or Carl, and then I think we'll call it a night. But appreciate you all sticking around with us until 8:20. It's been such an amazing event. Question that I received for Magnus is, as far as the experiences that you and your team create, how is it prototyped? Is there a process where it starts on pen and paper, or does it go right away to Unity?
We actually start in Unity. So we start by playing around what can be done, what effects, what technology is there, and what effects can we achieve, and then we try to actually build it and see it in real time. We tried doing pen and paper, doing concept sketches of what it could look like, but it's not until we actually see it running that you understand the effect of it. So we do all our prototyping in Unity and running on device.
Awesome. Thank you, Magnus. Great to have you. And then final question for Jerry or Carl or Magnus, whoever wants to take it. What would happen if a fashion designer made clothing of Tilt 5 reflective material? Could that be an AR fashion show?
I could send you a photo of our office manager wearing a retroreflective dress at one point. It's interesting and can be creepy, projecting straight through a human's body, essentially.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of interested, and I've been thinking about that myself. What happens if you put retroreflective material here and there? I think it's at least it like I say, one thing I must say about Tilt 5 is it's kind of eerie a bit compared to other. It's different in what you feel when you look at it than I've had in any other AR headset. The 3D effect is, I don't know why, but and I'm trying to find out. That's one reason why I ordered one. But it's a little different. But yeah, I can imagine it'd be really freaky. It'd be a little bit like in Harry Potter when he puts on his invisible robe, the invisible cape. Kind of gets a bit. I imagine you get a bit of that.
Yeah, can I just relay one story about an experiment we did years ago, which was pretty compelling. So it was basically, imagine like if a kid were to hang posters up on the wall, So we did a zombie defend your bedroom, where each one of these posters was a window out into this universe that went, out forever. It was pretty interesting, running from window to window, shooting at zombies. Worked quite well. We're not focused on doing those kinds of bigger experiences because we want to make sure that the product is flip it open, use it immediately, and nailing stuff to your wall is just a little bit too much friction for a first gen product. But I can imagine people will take our headset and do some pretty amazing stuff with it out of bounds of what we're directly supporting.
Awesome. Great question, Praveen. And it's been a great event tonight. Thank you so much, Carl. Thank you. And thank you, Jerry, for hanging on as well and taking some more of these questions. And at this point, we'll open the floor up for if anyone has anything they'd like to share or chat about. Otherwise, we will call it a night. And we really appreciate you joining New York Augmented Reality this evening. So thank you very much.
I have a recommendation. Can Carl and I come on again and have a debate over optics sometime? I think it would be fun.
Yes, you can have the whole time.
We'll give you a whole session for that, of course.
That'd be awesome.
We could organize.
Good luck,
that.
everyone. Happy New Year. Happy holidays.
Thank you, guys. Happy holidays. Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great
Thanks,
seeing you.
Magnus. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you, Magnus.
Ma. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Barry.
Peace.
Carl, could I organize something with you and Jerry? Would you be interested in that?
Yeah, it'd be fine. January is kind of busy right now. There's time. It's not, it's a whole month, but yeah, I am. We got CES, and then we have Photonics West. So that's going to be
maybe like February, March time. I'll work on.
Yeah, early February might work, or
Okay.
But after that window is probably best.
Okay, that sounds great. I'll follow up with you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Carl. You're the man.
All right. Catch you later.
Thanks again.
Bye.
Thanks again for your help in growing the meetup. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, Regina, I know you wanted to chat for a few minutes. Let me see if we could go in a breakout room. You know what?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Could I could you send me your email? I'll just send you a Zoom link. We'll just hop on.
That's a good idea. Yeah, let me do that. I'm gonna send you an easier email link instead.
Okay.
Oh, actually, you know what? Let me send you my my LLC email. That'd be so much better.
Okay.
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 Okay. I'm gonna go through the other one. Okay.
You know what? I only have a few minutes. I have the ability to do this right now in breakout
Okay.
rooms. Let me just do
Okay.
that.
Wonderful. Okay, I'm gonna just inject it. Okay, wonderful. Well, the meeting was definitely good. I'm glad that I joined finally because I've been looking at your meetup numerous times over I would say for a year. So how did you begin this? Are you in the AR world?
Yeah, I'm in the AR world. Exactly.
You are.
Yeah.
Are you working for a corporation or for yourself?
For a company. We work at a company.
You do. Okay. Yeah.
I only have a few minutes here. Is there anything I could help you with in specific?
No, the reason why is because I actually I work believe it or not, I do collaborative work with our U.S. government, especially Department of Energy and Technology.
Okay.
And also the connection to the network that I can really get involved in. Let's see if things do work out. It's just a Department of Defense.
Mm.
And I've been following up on like a lot of the ARs. In fact, I have people at Facebook and as you know, like a number of companies that was mentioned tonight. So in the future, if you're holding any other meetings that we can perhaps touch base then and get to know a little bit more about each other, because I would like to know some of your guest speakers as well, because they might be something that I think can eventually merge into, I don't know, collaborative work.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. Do you have a LinkedIn that you might use or something that we could connect?
Right now I'm actually revamping my LinkedIn profile. I mean,
Okay.
although I have like over like 1,200 people in there. So once that's fully redone, then I'll just again send you an invite through that.
Okay, I sent you my email. Reach out to me with anything, and I'll make sure to
Okay, perfect.
facilitate any conversations
Okay.
that you need.
All
Okay,
right,
thank you,
perfect.
Regina. I appreciate you
Okay.
joining and your
All right,
support.
thanks so much.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.